Hey friends, welcome to the Astrology and More podcast. I'm your host, Courtney. Okay, so today we are going to talk about what the most important planet in your astrology chart is. Now, you're going to read from other astrologers and other people's writings about that the sun is the most important sign in your astrology, your birth chart. And certainly there's enough books on the sun sign. So that's what everybody thinks, like the sun, is a Capricorn compatible with a Gemini, or I'm always seeing this. I'm always seeing like people wondering if their sun signs are compatible. And it just really don't matter about your sun sign that much. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you what the most important planet in astrology is in your birth chart. And what learning about this planet, when you learn about this and you understand the energy of this planet, then you will have a much better connection with yourself as well as others. And drum roll, please, the most important planet in your astrology chart is going to be your moon sign, because the moon is the place of where you come into the world. It rules your mother. So it has your pre-birth memories, like where your soul, it houses your moon sign is your subconscious, and it stores all of your soul's memories. Now, a lot of people don't believe in reincarnation. I have happened to do extensive research on it, and I used to not believe in it, but I am a very firm believer in it. Now, I can't wrap my mind around how everything works in the universe and about reincarnation, but I'm intelligent enough to go research it. And there's plenty of people who, have, past life memories. And why is that? Why is it that children can remember oftentimes, especially during the first 7 years of their life, their previous life, their past life? And that's because the moon, when you were a child until you were 7 to 10 years old, you were operating from your moon sign, your subconscious. And so as you grow into your sun sign and get older, you tend to forget, your past life memories, children that have them. Now, people who remember their past lives a lot of times will have moon in Cancer. They'll have the moon in the 12th or the 4th house, sometimes the 8th, mainly the 12th and the 4th. They're going to have it in conjunction with Neptune. People with the moon in the 12th house seriously have oftentimes remember their past life and are very good, gifted, and can even become past life regressionists, just on a side note. But why is the moon so important? Why does the moon outweigh the sun, in my opinion? Now, I am a karmic and a psychological astrologer. So the moon is where all of your pain is stored. It's where all of your programming from childhood. See, your first 7 years of life, 7 to 10 years, 5 to 10 years, depending on how fast you mature, those years, however you were treated during childhood, become your programming that you carry with you throughout your entire life into adulthood, and it plays in the background. And so it's influencing like 70%, 80% of your decisions in the background. It's basically like the computer program, like running your whole system. You don't even know it's running. It's like your autonomous system. So that's, the moon is your emotional center. And, this is where we connect with other people. This is where we connect with animals, it's where we feel emotions. It's how we love. It's the expression of love and nurturing. It wants to bond with other people. So you can see how during the first 5-7 years of your life, if your parents didn't love you, if you were raised in an abusive upbringing, how this damages this structure, your moon sign, your emotional center, and then walls start coming up and everything. So to get to the root of any problem, to get to the core of an onion, you have to peel these layers off. So by the time you get to adulthood and you don't know why you're acting the way you're acting, the subconscious doesn't announce itself. It just creates, you attract, people from your early childhood environment, people that mimic the same relationship dynamics. So the moon is very important. It's the natural wavelength that you're on. I wish that there were as many moon sign books and as people specialized in and talked about it as much as they talk about the sun, because you can direct the conscious part of yourself. The sun is the conscious part of yourself. The moon is the unconscious. And so it's the wavelength. Your subconscious, your moon sign is the natural wavelength that you're on without talking, without thinking, without doing. It is the natural energy that you vibe to. And so you can learn a lot about someone and yourself through understanding your moon sign. So for instance, if you are riding in a car with someone, and I know that everyone's experienced this, where they've been in a car, been in an awkward situation around someone that's not necessarily been rude or mean, or there's no words that's been said, but that it is so uncomfortable being around this person. The tension is so thick, you can cut it with a knife. It's just like you can't breathe. There's so much tension. That is probably a person you have a moon to moon square with. That energy, a square is an aspect. It's the way one planet's energy is hitting another planet. Now, remember, the zodiac, the planets themselves have their own expression of energy. The zodiac sign a planet is in is the filter for which that energy is expressed. So it's like the shade that energy is looking at. So it has its own characteristics, and the zodiac signs have their own planetary rulers. And so they kind of, everything's a blending. So for compatibility, I'm not saying that if you have a square aspect is a degree of tension aspect that is inharmonious, and it's always rubbing friction against each other. Now, squares in a natal chart, they create enough friction when you have squares to your moon or you have squares to your sun, especially the moon sign. It creates enough friction that it digs up the emotional, junk that you would rather stay buried, and it creates enough friction that you have to deal with it, and thus you have to evolve. So squares to the moon in the natal chart are, especially from Pluto, especially from the planets that you read a lot of the darker stuff, like, oh, you don't want a moon Pluto square, it means you're like this terrible person. No, it doesn't. It means that you are going to be an emotional archaeologist. And you're going to be a master strategist and researcher. So that friction in a natal chart, it will create growth, and it creates change and evolution and shedding your skin. But that friction in a relation between two people, a synastry aspect is the way one planet's energy is hitting another person's planet or energy. A planet or point in their chart, I'm sorry, not energy, hitting another planet or point, like, a point being the ascendant, the nodes of the moon, the houses, and things like that. So this is hard to harmonize because it's like this friction is always there. So everything seems to just, when you have a moon to moon square, everything seems to be just right to always pop off. A lot of argumentativeness, because this person's energy is constantly triggering this like uncomfortable feeling in you. It's like, you're in trouble and you're riding in the car with your dad or something. I mean, I've been around moon to moon square people, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And if you're a student of astrology, or if this is something you love researching, go back through your past relationships and analyze whether you have a square, aspect between your moon to people that you weren't particularly fond of. And I think that you're going to find that a lot of times you're going to have this moon to moon square, and it could create an instant dislike for someone. If you come across your moon to moon square, they can just rub you the wrong way. So I'm not saying that you're not compatible, but I'm saying it's a lot harder to compromise. Relationships are all about compromise. So when you have this constant, like, you're going to be, you're always just ready. The fight is always right there, just ready to pop off. So how do you know if you have a square aspect between yourself and someone else? So the cardinal, all the zodiac signs have their own modality, meaning their expression of energy. So there's fixed, cardinal, and mutable. So the fixed signs are the most stubborn signs. The fixed signs are going to be Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. So if you have moon in Scorpio and you are around a moon in Leo, I've seen people do this, and it is so uncomfortable for the moon in Scorpio person to be around the moon in Leo, because moon in Leo is a very theatrical sign. So when they tell a story, even if it's just about how going to the coffee shop, it's just like moon and Leo people are so animated and they just get so excited to tell their story. And they just like, depending on where the house placing of the moon is, I mean, this can really kind of wear a moon in Scorpio out, this friction, because moon in Scorpio people like a certain like level, calm, the water signs in general. They don't like too much excitement, too many loud noises, because their emotional centers are so open, and they're absorbing. They're so psychic. Their emotional centers are, everything's so loud to them. So things need to be a lot calmer and quieter, and they don't like that kind of excitement. So it makes them a nervous wreck. And so if you have your moon in a fixed sign, and if you around somebody with theirs in a fixed sign, that's a square. So for the cardinal signs, you're going to be Cancer, Capricorn, Aries, Libra. These are the cardinal energies. So the fixed signs are the ones that hold the lines. The fixed sign moons are the more stubborn moons, but stubborn has its purpose, because if you have a fixed sign moon child, for instance, like they're not going to be as likely to give into peer pressure. They're going to be the one that sets the rules in their friend group, because they don't like to be emotionally uncomfortable, and they're less apt to change. Okay. So the cardinal signs are the doers of the zodiac. When your moon is in a cardinal sign, you want to fix the problem. It's okay. Let's identify the problem, find a solution. So the fixed signs, they don't want to budge about change, but the cardinal signs, they're not fixed to a purpose. So they're willing to explore all the options, and then have the emotional energy to that compels them to take a route, find a route, change, identify a problem. So they're the doers. They head out in a direction. But if you are an Aries moon and you're around a Capricorn moon, this is a square, and this is a degree of tension, because the Aries moon have a tendency to be kind of bossy and need things done a certain way. And a lot of times they can trigger your fight or flight. They can trigger your fight or flight mechanism. I guess that would be your amygdala, because they have a confrontational manner to their emotional energy. It's, and they have this bossy, air. So it just squares off with like a Capricorn or a Cancer moon, and there's this friction. And so the Libra moons are the peacekeepers. So it's really not going to apply as much. Libra moons are not going to like it, but they will go along until they until they finally snap. They will take so much, and then there's like, no, and then they'll while out with it. But for the most part, they're going to be more accommodating than a Capricorn and a Cancer moon with an Aries moon. And with, if you think of the elements like this, so if someone has an Aries moon and they're or a fire sign moon and they're with a water moon, these two elements they have a hard time working together, because water moons, this is a water sign. Fire is a fire. So what happens when you put fire to water? You create this boiling effect, and then the water boils up so much it puts the fire out. So it's extremist in nature. It's all or nothing. It's black or white. It's one or the other. So there's harder time for fire sign moons and water moons to jive or to be compatible anyway. You're going to want to put earth signs with water moons, because earth supports water. So this is known as a sextile energy. This is a harmonious energy. It is a supporting energy, and you're more likely on the same wavelength, meaning their natural energy is not going to be disruptive to earth signs. I mean, earth signs are not going to be as disruptive to water signs. And air signs are going to fuel the imagination and the emotional centers, the theatrical centers, and the excitement that the fire sign moons crave. That's why air and fire go together, because it takes air to create this fire. Fire sign moons are they're larger than life. And air signs they love it because they love to be entertained. And so they become each other's muses. They're naturally on the same wavelength. They like spontaneity. They're fly by the seat of their pants. They are, they're hyper intellectual, creative. So these two jive really well. Water and earth sign moons tend to be more of the home bodies, and they like a more calmer atmosphere. Fire and air moons like to be out and go and do and see the world. Earth and water moons are more like even keel, want to be at home, settle the energy, so to speak. Not to say that they don't like to go out, but these are the introverted moon signs, whereas the air and the fire are going to be the extroverted. You're going to see a huge extroversion if you took the MBTI test. I'm almost willing to bet that I need to take some people's birthdays or their zodiac sign, moon signs linked with their MBTI test. I've noticed that people have tried to do this with the sun signs, but your MBTI test is going to be linked to your mind and your subconscious. So I think that it would be more likely to be in your moon sign if you were an extrovert or an introvert. So I would like to hear how many how many fire and air moons are extroverted personalities, and if my thinking is correct. And it's just I'm just thinking of coming up with ideas and noticing, correlations and noticing similarities and connections and things. So I always love to hear back from y'all. Y'all teach me more than I probably will ever teach you. Everybody is a big teacher to me. I love learning. So anyway, so you have the cardinal moons in this. So Aries, Capricorn, Cancer, you're going to square each other, big time. So, degree of tension, but they are more likely to come to a compromise than the fixed sign moons. Now you have the mutable sign moons. Let's go to that. So the mutable energy, this is the energy that they are the most compromising energy. They would rather just let someone else have their way than have to exert the energy to battle it out a lot of times. So this goes on for a while with mutable moons until they realize that they don't ever get their way, and then they can kind of just like wild out with it. But so the mutable moons are going to be Pisces, Virgo, and Gemini and Sagittarius. Now, notice that we have 3 dual-bodied signs in this mix-up here. A dual-bodied sign is a sign that has two, like the twins. There are 2 twins. There are 2 fish. There are the half man, half horse. This is called a dual-bodied sign. So when you think about the dual-bodied sign, you can think that there is a split energy. There is a Jekyll Hyde energy. So the mutable signs, there is a part of them that will go along to get along. Now, Virgo is different because Virgo is not a dual-bodied energy. But what happens is the other side, the split in this moon sign, there's a happy-go-lucky part to a moon in Pisces, a moon in Gemini, and a moon in Sagittarius, right? For Pisces moon, there's going to be a very mystical and spiritual and in touch and seeing the higher picture and universal consciousness and all that. Gemini is going to be hyper intellectual, always looking for new information. They're information junkies. Sagittarius's moon is always, happy-go-lucky. Let's have a good time. Everything's a joke. They laugh at funerals, and all this. Like, why so serious? This is the Sagittarius moon. But there is a split to that because no one can be that happy all the time. It's almost like this is the clown moon when it's in a dual-bodied sign, because they are constantly entertaining other people to the point that they're masking their own emotions by being, by information overload with the Gemini moon, by, the happy-go-lucky Sagittarius, let's make another joke, and, the being of service to other people, moon in Pisces, and, seeing the spirit, being in touch with the spiritual. They are unaware of the dark side of their emotions. They're unaware of oftentimes of their pain. So this can be a Jekyll Hyde split. So anytime you are drinking, your moon takes over. If you think about this, I've really put this together and I've thought a lot about this, but when you impair your conscious mind, your subconscious is going to take over. So I always warn people that have the moon in Pisces, the moon in Gemini, and the moon in Sagittarius, that they have a tendency to have a Jekyll Hyde blackout when they're drunk, and they have a snapping factor. And the reason they have a snapping factor is because they are unaware of this darkness, because they are all about, the light side of the dual bodied sign. And so this is where you can see people really snap out. It's going to be in their moon sign and in mutable moons. So my point to saying all this is mutable moons, dual bodied moons, Pisces, Gemini, Sagittarius. Don't date a button pusher. When you're trying to walk away because you have a snapping factor, like if you're in a relationship with somebody who just keeps following you and pushing your buttons, walk away from them. That's not the relationship with you, because when you have a snapping factor, you really can't help it. And if you add alcohol to that, you have no control of what comes out, and the darkness will come out. Everybody has darkness stored in their moon sign. So what's amazing about the moon sign is you can see how people need to heal and what they need to heal trauma, what wounded them in the past. I can look at someone's chart and tell what kind of mother they have, what they need to be emotionally fulfilled, how they what they need for emotional nourishment and to feel loved, how they express love. And so this is something, relationships, they're all about growing in the expression of love, and you want to have a connection where the energy is flowing free. You may notice in your past that you've been in relationships with people that you felt like you were walking on eggshells with, that you felt stifled, that you weren't as free to express yourself, like there was a fear of being judged, there was a shut downness. And this is because this is not a person who has their moon in alignment with yours. When you are with someone that has a trine or a sextile or a conjunction of your moons, a conjunction is the same exact moon sign. You are freer, you are happier. It is a lot easier for you to express your emotions. So, excuse me. So I want to encourage you all to please do a deep dive. Let's put the sun signs on the back burner. I mean, my gosh, we have heard enough about sun signs, folks. I mean, we have heard enough about sun signs. That's the conscious part. It's a flashy part. That's the easy part. I like to get down and do the digging, and let's find out what really makes people tick. And so that's going to be in the moon sign. So this is why the moon is the most important planet in your chart. And you can change your programming. You can get to the core of the onion, and you can find, nobody has a perfect childhood. Everybody has been emotionally wounded and will be at some point in your life. And you can see how it's stored. You can see what a person needs to do to release that and to heal. You can find healing through your moon sign, through understanding your moon sign. So I want to encourage all of you to do a deep dive on your moon, your family's moon, and understand them at a core level. Like, really, this is how you're going to connect to someone when you understand. Like, moon and Virgo people they are extremely self-critical. They are very hard on themselves. They have a terrible fear of rejection, and they're judgmental towards other people, but it's really because they're so critical on themselves. This is a perfectionist placing. So when you know this, if you know you have moon in Virgo, or if your child has moon in Virgo, you are going to want to, make a conscious effort to give them positive praise, because that's what their moon sign, that's what their emotions need. They need to hear, hey, you did a good job. They need to hear, appreciation, because it's a very undeserving moon. The moon in Leo needs an outlet for creativity. They want to be encouraged and inspired, and everybody needs positive praise, but they need, encouragement to delve in and tap into their creativity, because the Leo energy is the eternal teenager of the zodiac. The moon in Cancer wants to nurture people, wants to, it's very nurturing energy. It's very wholesome energy. And it rules the mother, and it's in its home sign. So we'll get deeper into the aspects of what can change this in a later video. But let me just run through the rest of these. So we talked about the moon in Gemini being hyper intellectual. And it wants information. It wants to connect to people, on a intellectual level. So a lot of times when the moon with the air signs, you can see how someone's going to react to crisis through their moon sign. And the problem with the moon and the air sign, and why it does the emotional center, like the connection can get shut off, is because it processes intellectually before it hits the emotional center. So therefore, they think they've dealt with things like grief, trauma, and all that, because they can talk about that or talk about those things, and they intellectualize them, but it hasn't reached the feeling center. So many times you're going to see the fire and the air sign moons have delayed grief. Okay, have delayed grief. Now, moon in Taurus is a fixed sign moon, and this is a homebody. This is actually the moon is in exaltation here. It is the energies of love, because the moon is how we express our love. They are working really good. Now, one of the downsides about moon in Taurus is they're overindulgent, and they want to, anything that feels good, like tastes good. They overindulge in food, sex, like shopping, gaming, and they don't really like getting up and doing a lot of things early on. They kind of have to grow out of that and force themselves. But, so moon and Taurus kids can have a very lazy streak to them, but when they grow into their sun sign, hopefully they grow out of that some. Now, moon in Aries always needs to be the first. They need leadership positions, and they can make quick decisions. Now, they do tend to get aggravated, and they get road rage in the grocery store line, like going down the grocery aisle. I can always spot the moon in Aries, because they'll be behind the old people, and they're just like, they got old people like blocking up the aisles. Moon in Aries' face is bright red with anger, like bright red. They're like doing their breasts. I mean, they are trying not to snap out, but moon in Aries can be very hot-headed. But the good thing about moon in Aries is that they are going to get over it rather quickly, just as quickly as it came on. Once they pass the old people in the aisle and get around, and they get to do their fast walking again, they're going to be back to center. Okay, so we talked about moon in Virgo. Moon in Libra people need a partner for everything. This is an air sign placing, but Libra is the sign of partnership, not just marriage, but partnership. So they always, need a best friend. They need, they're romantic people. So they're always like dreaming about getting married. Moon and Libra kids, Moon and Libra girls are always going to be like playing wedding dress up and marrying their Barbies and stuff. And this is a very dreamy, romantic, loving hearts, loving like beautiful things, placing, but they're very drawn to partnerships, and they have a hard time like being without a partner. Now, moon in Scorpio being a water sign, this is the, the hardest moon to be born under, no doubt. It's what I specialize in, because the moon in Scorpio keeps everything to itself. It wants to maintain control. It does not want to be hurt. When you come into this world, your moon is where your memories of your past lives are stored. And moon and Scorpio are very in touch with being betrayed in their past life, with being stabbed in the back, with being wounded. And so they come into this world not trusting people. And if they ever get burned, the anger and the resentment, they don't give people second chances. And even if they try to, it's still so much anger and resentment that gets stored in the subconscious. It starts manifesting. If not cleared and understood, it comes out in self-destruction, and it manifests as health problems, and they push people away because there's a wall around their emotional center. Very hard to trust. And they would rather, if for Moon and Scorpio, it's not better to love and lose than never love at all. If there's even any chance they're going to lose, they don't want to love at all. They want to keep everything under control. And so they push everything away. They're always weighing the consequences because they feel very deeply, probably one of the most deeply feeling placings of the moon. And so that, their emotions, they're terrified of their emotions, absolutely terrified of losing control of their emotions. And then there's a lot of pain that's trapped inside them. So the older they get, it's like it's a pressure cooker that is happening because life, tends to chew you up and spit you out. I mean, everybody goes on this journey called life. Our lives are a journey. They're not a destination. Watching TV has done us all a disservice because we see all these like people on TV and they look so happy, and we don't see all the cameras that's everywhere. We don't see their real lives. We see fakery and we think that's how we should live. And so everybody is wrong about how life should be lived. Like, life is a journey. Don't take it personal when you go through shit, folks. Like, you're going to go through stuff. Don't get mad about it. Like, that's part of life. I mean, yeah, it sucks. Some go through harder times than others, but just go with it. Just accept that you're in the peak time. But at any rate, I don't know why I got off on that, but because I just get frustrated because people come to me all the time and they're so offended that they're in the peak state. I've buried my entire family. Seriously, nearly by the time I was 25 years old. Like, talk about being thrown out into the world. And yes, I did feel sorry for myself. And yes, I did waller in it. But at a certain point, you have to just realize you're on a journey, and this is you can't escape pain in life. And that's one of the things. Moon and Scorpio don't want to talk about anything that's not happy, that disrupts their mood. They want people to put them in a good mood. And you're responsible for your own moods. You are going to continue. This pressure cooker is going to continue to build. It is not other people's responsibility to basically coddle you and your emotions. Like, you're going to have to deal with them. And I mean, it slowly, of course, but one of the best things you can do for anybody who has a hard time dealing with their emotions, but Moon and Scorpio people, I'm especially talking to you. You have to give yourself permission to feel your emotions. You have to allow yourself. You have to say, okay, no matter what it is, I'm an adult. I can handle it. I'm going to let it out. I'm going to feel it, and I'm going to be okay when it's over. I deserve happiness. So sometimes just that conversation alone is enough to start the process. Okay, so we talked about Moon and Sagittarius. It's the happy-go-lucky. Everything's a big joke, a big party. Moon and Sagittarius, y'all can joke too much. I mean, learn to connect with people on an emotional center. Not everything needs a joke or a comeback. This is geared more towards the men. Women tend to dive into more research and, for everything, let me research. Just learn to sit with people while they're having their emotional experiences. And the reason y'all do that, y'all aren't comfortable with emotions either. But, so you just want to woohoo, have a good time and avoid them. Okay, so Moon in Capricorn, the Capricorn moon is in detriment. I'm going to be teaching a class on this tomorrow, a workshop. The sign-ups in the page, and I'm going to be doing the other moon signs as well. So I want to encourage y'all all, if you want to learn and understand your moon on a deeper level, the aspects and how you can thrive, find emotional balance, I highly recommend you take my moon series workshop. It's only $20. It is going to be a couple-hour workshop. It's going to be fun. We host it over Google Meets, so everybody can interact. Everybody sees each other, And, it's just a fun time of learning all the, the cool things about your moon, as well as the things, your natural, like, crappy tendencies, because we all have them. I mean, there's, I can't just like blow flowers up everybody's butt. We all have crappy tendencies. And it's in acknowledging those and shining a light on them and to find a way to try to pull away from them. If you don't talk about them, if you don't acknowledge your own shortcomings, you can never overcome them. They're always going to be your shortcomings. So anyway, I highly recommend you take my class. If you have kids, especially if you have young children, it's one of the best things you can do for your children is learn their zodiac. Okay, so moon in Aquarius, this is the Mad Hatter placing. This is because this is paradoxical, because the moon wants to emotionally connect. The expression, this is how we connect to other living beings and energy and everything. This is how we connect to source. This is how it's our spiritual center where all of our pain and everything is housed. Aquarius is the sign of freedom. It does not want to be obligated to anyone or anything. So the second the moon emotionally connects, the Aquarius filter tries to pull away, and the subconscious starts sabotaging this connection because it doesn't want to lose its freedom on its journey. That emotional energy doesn't want to be controlled. It wants to have freedom to express however it wants to express. It don't want pressure put on it. It don't want to be obligated. It don't want to have to ask permission, take, and those kind of things put a lot of pressure. And so what happens when moon in Aquarius people feel trauma is they intellectualize it. And because the Aquarius energy is very future minded, and this is where the moon is at, you see the bigger picture, and it takes you a long time for the emotions to register. And if it's a deeply painful trauma, something from the past, something unhealed from childhood, if it's the bereavement or death that you're dealing with, this comes out in very disruptive behavior from moon and Aquarius people, and they don't even realize they're doing it. But they can become like a toddler pitching a fit, like, no, like, I don't know if y'all ever seen that movie Stillwell Angel, or not Stillwell Angel, but A League of Their Own. And they had that little boy on the bus, and he has chocolate all over his face, and he's like running through the bus with chocolate spoon. He's like, yeah. And that's like moon and Aquarius people when they have gone through, when there's something bothering them. And the deeper the harder that is, or the deeper the pain, the more disruptive they get, the more their energy is, they kind of get like button pushy, and they think other people are pushing their buttons though. But what we see in other people really comes from within. A lot of times we need to look within ourselves. If there's something we don't like about someone, ask ourselves what it is in us that we don't like about ourselves, because the moon is a mirror. Okay, so it's your emotional center and how you're feeling emotionally. The people on the outside of this mirror reflecting your emotions back to you. So you always need to be reevaluating your internal, your emotional center, your moon sign. Okay, so finally, we're going to get to the moon in Pisces. Now, the moon in Pisces is the most prone to alcoholism. They want to drink their problems away because they have a very fragile nature, a photographic memory. Everything is connected to their emotions. And, their moods are so changeable because this is a mutable moon. And this can be a very passive aggressive moon. Now, on the good side about the Pisces moon, if they tune into the mystical, if they tune into meditations and the universal consciousness, there's nothing they can't overcome. Then they really tap into a healer. The healer gets to emerge from them. Very psychic and insightful. And I will say, Pisces moon people, stop volunteering to help people and then getting mad about it later and then bitching about it later. Just stop. If you want to help somebody, you can help somebody, okay? Help them from the goodness of your heart and don't expect anything from them in return. The Pisces energy tends to be a victim, savior, martyr, have a victim, savior, martyr complex, meaning, they run in and rescue people and, and then they try to save them, and then they become the victim of them because they didn't get, anything out of it. They didn't get enough appreciation, or then they were taken advantage of. And then they were just question your own subconscious need for this, because Moon and Pisces people can tend to get in very toxic relationships and then drink themselves, drown their sorrows in alcohol, and can be quite terrible drunks a lot. So really question and really acknowledge this need to save and be saved. And then, martyring yourself, like it, you really need to recognize that within. And don't you want something better for your life? Because you're going to see this play out over and over and over. And so really pay attention to your moods when you have the Moon in Pisces, and make a commitment that you're not going to volunteer to help people unless you truly want to. And you're going to already expect that they're not going to appreciate you, and that they're not going to have your back in the, if you need something. So if you go into it with those expectations, then you're not mad about it whenever, you already know that you're getting the crappy end of the stick. You know what I'm saying? So you're not, because once Moon in Pisces starts festering on something, and starts swimming around a certain bowl of something, I mean, that's like, they just don't, it in their minds, they work themselves up. And I understand this because I have Moon in my 12th house, which is the Pisces house. So it's better just to release all that than to drown in it. Okay. And so anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Thank you so much for your support. And I will see you soon with the Empath Snare and the Astrology and Murder News serial killing video. Take care and have an awesome, awesome week. Namaste.